start. I'm probably supposed to talk. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, let's do it. Hello. Thank you for taking the time to join this call today. My name is Renee Elmers, and I am honored to represent each of you in the United States Congress. This is my second Teletown Hall event of the year, and I'm excited to speak to each of you about the events in Washington as well as hear your concerns. This is a live Teletown Hall, and throughout the call, people will likely come on and leave, so I will take the time to remind everyone briefly how to best participate. If you have a question you would like to ask, please press *3 to be added to the queue. Also, if you would like to sign up for our e-newsletter, please press *0 to receive the latest news from my office. We will do our best to get to as many questions as possible, but please be patient as we work through everyone we can. If you are not able to get through during the session, I would encourage you to go onto my website, elmers.house.gov, and sign up for my e-newsletter to hear the latest from our office. That website name again is elmers.house.gov. Again, if you have any questions or comment, please press *3. I want each of you to know that I'm excited and honored to be your representative in Congress, and as we press Washington to address our mounting debt and remove the barriers to our economic prosperity, it has been a busy first few months in Washington as my fellow freshmen and I continue to curtail government spending, fix our economy, and bring jobs back to North Carolina. Before I was elected to Congress last fall, I had spent over 21 years as a registered nurse, caring for patients and helping people reach their full potential to get our economy back on track. While it's been difficult at times, I've already learned that nothing worthwhile is able to be accomplished easily and that there is still so much work to be done, starting with jobs and cutting government spending. Let me just take a minute to remind anyone just coming onto the call that you are joining a live Teletown Hall with Congresswoman Renee Elmers. If you have a question or comment, please press *3. As you all are as you are all well aware, there are many problems with our economy here in North Carolina and across the country. Unemployment is at a high of 10% in parts of our district, and statewide it has risen to 9.9%. These numbers reflect what we have already known for a while now. We need jobs in North Carolina and across the country. But for the past 2 years, the economic policies enacted by the Obama administration have made a damaged economy even worse. Instead of focusing on small businesses and job creation, the President has used his time expanding government regulations and limiting growth. This is irresponsible and must end now. Yesterday, as I stood on the House floor, I took a deep breath and cast my vote for a bill that, while imperfect, will protect our economy and begin bringing accountability back to Washington. This crisis did not begin last week or even a few months ago. The pressure has been growing in the months leading up to this vote, while fear and anger has swelled within the base of both parties. Americans are fed up and disgusted with the way Washington has spent their money and caused this crisis. They spoke loud and clear in last year's historic election, sending 87 new representatives to Washington to stop the bleeding and find solutions to our economic crisis. I am proud to have been one of those 87 freshmen, and I am reminded every day of just how great my responsibility is. This bill was nowhere near perfect, as few things are in life, but as I said last week, I will not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This agreement will bring certainty back to our free market system and is consistent with the principles we set forth in the House from the beginning. It meets and cuts more than the debt hike standard that Speaker Boehner laid out in a speech to the Economic Club in New York in May, and it is consistent with what I have emphasized since these negotiations first started. Namely, the cuts will be greater than the increase to the debt limit, and there will be no new taxes under this deal. On Monday, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO, reported that this plan will save at least $2.1 trillion and cut the deficit immediately by $917 billion. Not only does this fulfill our initial conditions, it is a historic accomplishment. Since 1962, the debt ceiling has been raised 74 times without any conditions. I have a question from Rodney Howell of Lillington.
Yes.
Hi, Rodney.
Hi. Okay. I am a senior citizen. Fortunately, I have benefits from the VA. My question is, ma'am, is that this new fiasco that's going on in Washington that's just been settled, I guess, today. As you know, we talk about saving money, cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare.
No, sir. We're not talking. There is no cut to Social Security. There is no cut to Medicare. There is no cut to veterans' benefits. Absolutely none.
Okay. No, ma'am, I've got a question. With the situation that we've got where, 44 cents out of every dollar is a borrowed amount that we're trying to keep our government going, and yet we will continue to give foreign countries billions and billions of dollars, and they don't even like us to begin with. You know, all we are is sugar daddy to them. We need bridges. We need roads. We build hospitals in Iraq, Afghanistan, and our hospitals we need hospitals here, as you know, as a medical person.
Mr. Howell, I'm going to put you back into the queue, and I'm going to answer your question because I have the same exact concerns that you do. I understand fully what you are saying. In fact, we just in the Foreign Affairs Committee just put forth the state budget for 2012, and within that committee markup, which is what it's called, we cut spending of foreign aid considerably for the very same reasons that you're pointing out. And that was the discussion that took place, the debate, and heated very often during that. And when I say 2-day markup, I mean literally. We did this markup for 2 days straight because there was so much work that needed to be done. We understand fully exactly what you're saying. And yes, 42 cents of every dollar that's spent in this country, federal spending, is borrowed from other countries, the largest holder of our debt being China. And that is, Admiral Mullen said basically, this is the greatest threat to national security. It's not another country. It's not another entity. It is our own debt, and we have to do everything we can to change that. We are working very hard. Again, I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and cutting spending there is something that is paramount to us for the very reasons that you pointed out. Many times my colleagues and I pointed out the fact that we were spending millions of taxpayer dollars giving it to countries without any accountability whatsoever on their part. Many times those same countries voting against us in UN votes, voting against us consistently on what we need, and yet they're getting money from us, our taxpayer money. So we are fully aware of that, sir. We understand, and we are trying everything we can to pull back on that amount of spending. So thank you for that question. It is a great concern of mine as well. Again, I just want to remind our callers that if you have any questions, please to hit *3. And if you if you can't stay on the line, because I know everybody has busy schedules, but you'd like to keep updated on our information, if you can just hit *0, and that will get you our e-newsletter that we put out. And basically what it does is it helps us stay current with you, so you know all the things that we're working on here in Washington and back in the district. I was talking a few moments ago before that excellent question about the amount of money that we are sending out of our country to foreign countries, about the debt ceiling vote, or the budget reform bill of 2011 that was passed in the House yesterday. And I voted for it, in favor of it, because it had essential key elements in it to cut spending, decrease, pull back on all the Washington spending, no tax increases, and the opportunity to vote on a balanced budget amendment. It passed the Senate today, and from my understanding, the President has signed it into law. This is a first step towards fiscal responsibility. I was just saying, though, however, as imperfect as it was, I wasn't in the negotiation table um, giving my input. If it had been my bill, I'm sure it would have been much different. But in this new deal, the limit will be raised alongside substantial spending cuts, including $1 trillion now and $1.2 trillion more, based on recommendations of a special congressional committee that will be formed. The CBO, or the Congressional Budget Office, I mentioned that a moment ago, report further shows that this deal establishes caps on discretionary spending through 2021 and requires that the House and Senate vote on a joint resolution proposing a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. This is significant. One, and I can lay out the reasons that I voted for it. No tax increases. The President wanted tax increases in this bill, and the Republican conference and our leadership, Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader Cantor, in their negotiations emphatically said no taxes in this bill. The spending cuts would have to be greater than the debt ceiling increase. There would have to be caps put in place for future spending, because we believe that Washington has to be held to the same standards and the same high level of budgeting that our own homes have. And it's time for us to say no. And there again, we have the opportunity to vote on a balanced budget amendment. I have another caller, Mr. James Daniels from Sanford. James, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. What question did you have today for me?
Well, just a couple of things. Encouragement to vote against the Panama-Colombia-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, because it will cost between 500 and 600 jobs right here in Lee County, just from Frontier and Parkdale mills. They're almost certain to close if that passes. The other is that in your Cut, Cap, and Balance Act that you co-sponsored, I believe the number was that at some point you wanted to cap tax revenue at 18% of GDP. Is that right?
Well, basically what that did was it brought the spending down. And what I'm going to do, Mr. Daniels, is I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I'm going to answer your question. Number one, I too have those same concerns, and I have spoken many times to our textile industries, Parkdale and Frontier Mills, and I know the situation that our textile industry faces with the free trade agreement, especially to South Korea. That's where the greatest concern is. And our office and myself, we have worked diligently at putting forth legislation accompanying these free trade agreements so that we would not harm our own industries, especially in North Carolina, being so important to us in the textiles. So, we are currently working on that, and of course those have not been brought up for a vote yet. We've been dealing with all these other issues that we're talking about, but I am very, very concerned with those things. As far as the issue goes there are no tax increases in these deals, and we basically said the cuts have got to be greater than the debt ceiling increase, and that is what we've put forward. There are no tax increases in this, even though the president keeps saying that, he was committed to tax increases in this. But we were able to do that. And there are caps in place. And what happens over time is we're trying to bring down the spending every year so that we're back to about a 20% of GDP. Right now we're well above that, and that's largely where a lot of this debt problem has been. Because as you all know, the problem in Washington is not tax revenue coming in; it's the spending that Washington has undergone. $3.7 trillion of debt has been added to our debt since President Obama took office. So those are the things we're fighting diligently against. Those were all of the key essential parts in this bill that we just passed, and there again with a balanced budget amendment as well. So, okay, I have another question here from Ronald Gravely of Pittsboro. Ronald, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm gonna let you ask your question, and then I'm gonna put you back in the queue, and I'll answer your question for you. Okay?
Okay, great. I like the deal y'all struck. It sounds like you had to improve the ceiling, but at the same time required it to come back down and spending. My key question is, in your opinion, why do we remain dependent on hostile countries for our oil when we have this tremendous field in the wilderness of northern Alaska, and and it's okay as far as Alaska to drill there?
Well, I'm going to answer your question for you, and again, I'm going to put you back in the queue. I can't agree with you more. Absolutely. And just so you know, we here in the Republican Conference and in the House, we have passed legislation after legislation that opens up the ability for more leases, opens up the ability to drill. There again, you mentioned the wilderness in Alaska. Perfect example. We could be drilling for natural gas off the North Carolina coast, and what would that do? That would create jobs here in North Carolina. Our problem is that the President administration is just completely run by the EPA, and the environmentalists are in control there. And as long as President Obama is in office, we are going to continue to have this problem. And you are right. We are dependent on countries that do not like us. They do not like us because we are free. And so we have got to do everything we can to be energy independent. We have had many, many pieces of legislation, again, passed through the House, only to go over to the Senate for Harry Reid to essentially throw them in the garbage can. And we have had many initiatives come through the House to encourage and promote energy production. We want to be energy independent for the very reasons that you pointed out. If we had done that years ago, like, back in the Bush administration, we would be energy independent today and able to move forward. So thank you for that question. I share your concerns, and I'm doing everything I can to be energy independent. Okay, I have another question. I have another question here from, let's see, from Wilma Irwin in Sanford. Wilma, do you have a question for me today?
Well, I do. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm fine. Maybe it's not as much of a question, but let me say that I spent my life working in Social Security, and that I think it's a wonderful institution in America. And I get upset when I listen to so many people talking about Social Security, and it appears that they really do not understand the Social Security program and how much of what they call retirement benefits are really built in with disability and other ways where we could look at the program and make changes that we could change within the program. And while I was working in the administration, every time you wanted to save money, you cut staff. And now, even myself as a retired person, our access to Social Security is so limited and nothing about public service the way it used to be. But it just seems to me that the people who really talk about Social Security ought to take the program apart. Look at the disability. Look at the retirement. Look at how much of that comes from the SSI General Fund, you know. And that's just really, I get really concerned because that was my life's work.
Well, I appreciate that, your input, Ms. Irwin, and I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to put you back in the queue. And again, I can't tell you how much I share your sentiments. And, you know, so many times we refer, and you hear this on a general basis, you hear Medicare and Social Security referred to as entitlements. You know, they're not entitlements. You've paid into them your entire life, both Social Security and Medicare. You deserve to get those benefits back again, just the way that you were promised. And that's what we're doing. The Republican Conference is working diligently to save these things. And we know how important it is. And you are right. We understand that there are bits and pieces and parts of Social Security that have all been lumped together. And if we take a good, hard look at all of them, a good, honest look, a good fact-based look at all of these different spending plans, we can find where there can be savings. We want to make it better. That's our approach, is efficiency and improvement. And it's not that we don't want to hurt anybody. We want everyone to get the benefit that's there for them and secure that moving forward. But we also understand that there are changes that are going to have to be made so that we can empower those who are on Social Security, so that we can make the program stronger. And of course, one of those ways is for us to have folks paying into the system and get jobs created again, so that our business owners can be hiring and we can be paying into the system. There's a lot of answers that we can be looking at, and we understand that. And I just, again, thank you for your question. Hi, let's see. We've got a question for Mr. William Bryant from Kipling. And Mr. Bryant, if you have a question for you. Okay.
Yes, I'm wondering how the immigrants can come over here and walk into a drugstore and walk out with a sack full of drugs, a sack full, with three small kids and she's pregnant, and get in almost a brand new Yukon, where I, a citizen, have out here worked all my life and had to buy my insurance and had to pay a copay. I can't see where we're giving away too much free stuff. And boy told me, he said, the reason those immigrants come up here, they can get stuff free.
Well, I'm going to answer your question to the best of my ability, because there again, I've got many questions in that area as well. I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I'm going to give it my best shot. I can't agree with you more. You know, that's part of our problem that we have with immigration. And when I say immigration, I'm talking about illegal immigration, those situations. Basically, we do give health care insurance to those who are coming here in the form of Medicaid, especially, you know, if a pregnant female is here, she is put on Medicaid, and that's difficult for all of us, because we understand that, you know, that's our hard-earned tax dollars that's being spent. And although we want to help people, and we do, unfortunately, you know, there's been a red carpet that's been laid out, and you know, hey, from their standpoint, they're coming to America to get everything they possibly can. And we, as good, responsible elected officials, have got to come to the conclusion. We've got, there again, another area where we have got to take a good, hard, fact-based look at the situation. Unfortunately, it's one of those areas of political correctness where you know, people really just don't want to address the issue because they're afraid of offending anyone. But we're going to have to do it as part of us becoming much more fiscally responsible and cutting down on the amount of spending that we're doing. We've got to come up with some solutions. And as we move forward, I know it's not on the forefront right now because of so many of these other issues that we're dealing with that, are affecting our economy right now with, need for more jobs and putting securities back in the private sector so that our business owners and our job creators can start hiring again. But we are going to be addressing the immigration issue, and again, I feel very good that we're going to be able to come up with some real solutions there. If you're just joining us, I know there are many of you that might be just coming on. This is a live Teletownhall meeting. I am Congresswoman Renee Elmers from North Carolina's District 2, and if you have any questions, you can hit *3 to get into the queue. And if by chance you have to get off the line because, time is running short for you, you can always hit *0 and get our e-newsletter, and that will keep you up to date on all the things that we're doing here in Washington and back in the district, where so much is going on. I have a question from Mr. Robert Stevens from Fuquay Varina. Mr. Stevens, are you on the line?
Yes, Congresswoman Elmers, I'm concerned about the health care bill and just how much it's going to affect us. We only taking in $2.4 trillion, and I just don't think we can afford the health care bill.
Well,
and furthermore, I think it's an adverse factor toward jobs. I don't think jobs are going to improve too much. People are concerned, who employ people are concerned about the health care bill.
Well, I'm going to answer your question because this is the reason that I came to Washington. I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I'm going to address it as best I can. And again, I wish I had concrete solutions that I could give you today, but we are working on it. Basically, as I said, one of my big concerns coming to Washington as a nurse was the health care bill that was being put forward. Even when President Obama was running for office, he said that he was very much in favor of, a nationalized health care system. Well, basically what we've seen as we've gone along since the bill was enacted is the out-of-control spending associated with it, tax increases at many different levels, but most of all and most importantly, it is devastating to health care. It's going to decrease the quality of care. It's going to decrease the availability of you to be able to see a physician and get good health care simply because there are fewer doctors working today than there were when this was enacted. Many doctors have dropped their Medicare coverage of seeing patients. Many have dropped Medicaid as well. There are many mandates that have been put in place for physicians to adhere to, which we've addressed through legislation. But the main key here, and this is what we need to make sure our seniors understand, it also is devastating to Medicare. It takes apart Medicare as we know it. And, many times we hear the other side or the Democrat Party saying that they're fighting for the little guy and they're fighting for our seniors to preserve Medicare. Well, and they blame us as Republicans for wanting to change it with the 2012 budget that we passed in the House. Well, the fact of the matter is we're trying to save it and strengthen it. And the reason being that in the President's health care bill, there are two things that took place which are very devastating to our seniors. One, it cut $500 billion out of Medicare. That is a significant amount of money to be cut from the program. But also, in its place, they put a 15-person bureaucratic panel in place who are going to be making life and death decisions as to who gets health care, who does not, and when I say that, what I mean is what Medicare will pay for and what Medicare will not pay for. And this group of individuals will be making those decisions. There will be no appeal process whatsoever, and they have full reign. They are unaccountable to anyone. Even in Congress, we have absolutely no way to fight back. These are the things that we are fighting so hard against. And we need you out there to understand that that's what's been put in place, and that's why we want to save Medicare and, again, make it stronger. So thank you for that question. Those of us who are here in the Republican conference cannot agree with you more. This health care bill is devastating to health care, the economy, and our seniors. I have another question here from Pearl Canterbury in Bear Creek. Ms. Canterbury, if you're on the line, do you have a question for me?
Renee, it's not Miss Canterbury, it's Mr.
Oh, I'm
Canterbury.
sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
I apologize.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you anyway, and I'm really disappointed that you voted for this thing that they've passed. I'm not convinced in no way, shape, or form that it's the best way to go for our country. I really feel like as conservatives, we need to really hold the line and let them do the worst that they can do, and then maybe by then people will realize what we stand for and what we're trying to do, get behind you, and where we can turn this country back around to what it used to be.
Okay. Now,
and also,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you a question, but you go ahead.
I'm very concerned that I've already heard Obama, Harry Reid, several of the top Democrats say when this 12th panel issue comes up and they come in and do their thing, that the tax cuts will definitely be on the table.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Canterbury. Why do you believe what President Obama says, but you don't believe what I say?
I do not believe what he says.
Okay. Well, let me ask you another question. Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you folks out there that put me here, and that's the reason that I had to make a very difficult decision and vote for that bill. And it is imperfect. It wouldn't have been the bill that I put forward. But let me ask you a specific question. What is it about it? Is it just the fact that we raised the debt ceiling that you have an issue with?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me tell you the things that I've said consistently about raising the debt ceiling. I know exactly what you're saying, because when we talk about raising the debt ceiling, and I believe President Obama thinks this as well, that means he's going to get more money to spend more. Well, the fact of the matter is that isn't the case at all. The reason that we had to raise the debt ceiling, and I did not come up with this on my own or because one of my colleagues told me to vote for it. I have done my homework. I have listened to every group I possibly can. I have listened to the experts, the economists. I have listened to the credit rating institutions. I have gone well out of my way to understand the situation so that I can understand it fully. And Mr. Canterbury, just so you know, I'm going to put you back in the queue, okay? And then I'm going to continue to answer the question. The things that I have said about the debt ceiling increase is, unfortunately, because of all of the spending that has taken place over the last couple of years, and I'm just going to tell you, and this is a fact, President Obama has added $3.7 trillion to our debt. Well, that credit card payment, that statement has come due, and the country is out of money to pay the interest on it. And that is devastating and leaves us vulnerable. Now, it's going to be up in the air. We don't know exactly what that means. But I cannot move forward with a gun to the American people's head with spending and costs and the possibility of interest rates going up and going into a financial catastrophe in this country. The consequences were just too great. So I laid out the principles that I believe as a conservative are good, strong principles to vote. If we vote for a debt ceiling increase, I said, look, it has to come with substantial spending cuts, which this bill provides. It puts forward spending cuts greater than the debt ceiling increase. No tax increases, absolutely no tax increases. This is why the president is coming out now and saying that, oh, yes, there will be tax increases because this commission will put them in place. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The Bush tax cuts sundown in 2013. Hopefully, we're going to have a Republican president who is going to extend those Bush tax cuts in 2013. And that's going to be the American people working together to make sure that happens. He understands that this is where he failed in his negotiations because he was adamant about tax increases being part of this. And we as Republicans said absolutely not. There cannot be tax increases because we know that will be a job killer. And people will lose their jobs because our business owners, those who are our job creators, will have to lay off more people. We've also put in place significant caps to control spending moving forward. That is significant. And I know on the surface it doesn't seem like it's all that important because spending has been out of control here in Washington for so long. But in reality, we were able to put caps in place. But on top of all of that, there is a guaranteed vote for a balanced budget amendment in both the House and the Senate. That is historic. Never before has there been an opportunity such as this one. 15 years ago, the balanced budget amendment missed by one vote. We have the opportunity again to vote on a balanced budget amendment, amend the Constitution, and hold Washington accountable and responsible for taxpayer dollars. You as Americans deserve to know where your money is being spent in Washington. And just as the budgets at home are having to be adhered to and everyone's had to cut back, so too does Washington. Again, I understand and I appreciate this bill was not perfect, but it is a bridge to a good, sound financial future. It does put some certainty back into the free market system, but the real answers, the real solutions lie in the private sector with job growth and in the 2012 election where we can get a new president who's conservative and fiscally responsible and a majority in the Senate of Republicans so that we can finally pass all of the legislation that we've worked so hard on to cut spending and rein in these terrible regulations that are killing our jobs. And furthermore, we're going to continue to cut spending. This bill was not the be-all, end-all. It wasn't the end. It's the beginning. So I appreciate your question. I appreciate your candor, your honesty about it, because there again, it wasn't an easy vote to take. If any of you are new callers coming on, you can hit *3 to ask a question, or if you have to get off the line, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, you can hit *0 for our e-newsletter. Let's see. I have Miss Grace Zyla on the phone from Dunn. Miss Zyla, do you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. Well, the biggest thing is the more I listen, the more I agree with all of the concerns of the questionnaires that have come before me, so it is hard to pinpoint what I want to say in just one question. I'm from Dunn. I voted for you. I'm so proud you're up there. The only thing my biggest concern right now is I keep hearing create jobs, create jobs. I mean, over and over. But yet it seems like big business keeps outsourcing. We send everything overseas to be manufactured. You can tell that by everything that is in our stores.
Oh, yeah.
So big business is making the money so that it satisfies the people who have stock, in the stock market, so they're making money. Everybody has to be happy. So what can be done about creating jobs? Because I don't see any jobs, especially in our area, being created.
You are right. And Ms. Isla, I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I've got this is what I have been working on just diligently. Healthcare and job creation are my two biggest issues, and I agree with you. You are absolutely right. Our businesses have left the United States to set up shop elsewhere, and the number one reason is because it is so expensive. It is the cost of doing business in this country is the highest in the world. In fact, if we just, you mentioned some of our larger businesses. The corporate tax rate in the United States is higher than any country in the world. And those businesses that started here or that would like to come here, they leave. Why? Because they're putting forth their business plans and they're looking 3, 5, 7 years out, and they realize that if they're going to stay in business, that unfortunately they're going to have to leave. It's not an easy decision for them to make. Businesses want to be here in the United States. Being able to do business in the United States would be, for us as Americans, American-made products, for us to set up shop here, or for other countries to come into the United States. That is the goal. The problem is we drive them away. We drive them away with excessive taxes. We drive them away with cumbersome and overreaching regulations. The unions, the cost of doing business here in the United States is just too great, and we force business out. So therefore, we do end up with products that are less than perfect. We much cheaper made products rather than American-made goods. And we're fighting that. We are fighting very hard. Tax reform is high on the priority list for us as Republicans here in the House of Representatives. We understand that this is an issue that needs to be dealt with. And when we talk about creating jobs, we're not talking about putting forth a stimulus package of billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars to create, what I consider artificial jobs. What we're talking about doing is putting securities and certainties into and for the private sector, because it's our small business owners that are our job creators. They're the ones that create jobs. But right now they can't hire because there again, our president is on TV every day talking about tax increases, saying that things like this bill we just passed, that there will be tax increases, that this committee that will be handling finding more spending cuts, that they will, of course, have to increase taxes. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And I want all of you on the line to understand the House of Representatives, the Republican conference, we have the majority. We are committed to not only no tax increases, but to cutting taxes so that we can create jobs again, so our business owners can feel that certainty. That's the key. It's the private sector, not Washington, that are going to come up with these solutions, and we understand that. So please know that when the president is on TV, when Harry Reid is on TV talking about increasing taxes and taxes being part of these plans moving forward, what they're doing is appealing to their liberal progressive base, because their liberal progressive base right now is very unhappy with them because he wasn't able to get tax increases into this bill. So again, thank you for your question. Thank you for being so honest and concerned about this issue. Again, when we're talking about creating jobs, we're talking about real jobs that are created by our job creators out there in the business world that are secure and safe, and we're doing everything we can to make that happen. Bob, I've got another question here from Mr. David Williams from Siler City. Mr. Williams, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Did you have a question for me?
Yes, Representative Elmers. My question, a lot of the questions that have come up have been excellent questions, and I want to commend you on settling the issue and getting it settled out before it was a devastation to our economy, even more than it was becoming. But with that said, my interest is in that I think we're over-subsidizing. We're spending far too much money on subsidies for things such as the ethanol subsidy for the corn, and we're subsidizing something that it costs more and takes more energy to make that 10% that we're putting in our gas now than it creates, than the ethanol that you've created creates. And so, and it's been something that they've discussed for some time, and even the General Accounting Office said that although we put $37.3 billion into it between 1995 and 2003, and that's more than twice the amount spent on wheat subsidies and soybean, and 70 times what was spent on tobacco, that it by the time of 2012, it will only be 0.5% of our energy use. And it just seems like a very little return for the amount of money that we're spending on it.
Well, Mr. Williams, I appreciate that question, and I'm going to put you back in the queue right now, and I'm going to answer your question. I, too, and many of my colleagues are very, very concerned about the ethanol subsidies. In fact, in the House of Representatives, we have passed a number of bills to rein in the ethanol subsidy regulations. And we're very concerned about the mandates putting forward because it's going to increase ethanol in our fuel, basically. And, you know, I can hit that from a number of different perspectives. And there again, the only reason that you haven't seen it come to fruition is because as we pass this legislation in the House of Representatives, it has to be voted on in the Senate. And Harry Reid, you know, he just says, nope, we're not going to deal with that today, and it gets filed in the circular file. And unfortunately, that's what we're up against right now. But we are concerned about the ethanol subsidies from many different perspectives. One being our, you know, we're agriculture, and although the corn subsidy helps those who are growing corn, and I'm certainly not against anybody that grows corn, but the fact of the matter is when we pick winners and losers, someone wins and unfortunately another sector loses. For instance, our livestock farmers, our hog farmers, our poultry farmers, they're losing because the cost of grain for them is so high that there again, the corn subsidy wins, the livestock farmer loses. This is something that is just not tolerable. And of course, with the mandates increasing the amount of ethanol up as we go along, you know, there are farmers who are saying this is destroying our equipment. We can't use this higher ethanol in our fuel. Boat owners, devastating to engines. You know, and this is what we're seeing over and over again. So once again, what sounded like a good idea on the surface to increase, you know, alternative energy sources, you know, zoning in on ethanol, like you said, it's just a very, very small fraction of an answer to that issue. And there are so many other available sources that we can be using for the very same thing, and we're working very hard to make that situation right. So there again, I appreciate your concern on that, and just know here in the House of Representatives, the Republicans, we are working very, very hard on this. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes to go on our question and answer hour, and if you're just joining us and you have a question that you'd like to ask, to get into the queue, you need to just hit *3. Or if you want to just listen in, but you'd also like to get more information, you can hit *0 and you'll get our e-newsletter. And again, this is a live teletown hall with Congresswoman Renee Elmers. Very honored and very, very excited and always happy to be listening and hearing from my members out there in District 2. You are the people that put me here. I'm fighting for you every day here in Washington so that we can turn this economy around and we can have a strong, growing economy again, so we can pass on some good stability to our children. Let's see. I've got a question here from Mr. Timothy Terry from Siler City.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Terry. Did you have a question for me?
Yes, ma'am. I am, well, I received disability, thanks be to God Almighty. I was an iron worker, fell off 5 buildings and all this good stuff. I am wondering, I watched this program, the best show that ever comes on television, Shepherd's Chapel. Okay, this is Pastor Arnold Murray teaches chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Okay, I'm wondering what happened to the God that this country was founded upon? Why does no one speak of it?
Well, Mr. Terry, I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I'm going to just tell you right now, I agree with that. I am fighting every day. And here again, you know, for us as Republicans, we are very faithful here in Washington, believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe, but we have prayer caucuses, we have Bible study. When we start a Republican conference, we started off with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. We are fighting every day to protect God in our country. God created America for us. It is the greatest country in the world. And, you know, all it takes is one voice out there of opposition. And, you know, you see how folks react. It's one of those issues of political correctness. And, you know, many times I know exactly what you're saying when you say that you feel like we've all forgotten about God. We haven't. And we're fighting very hard to keep God in everything we do. God, you know, in God we trust. And we're going to continue to fight for that. Again, I'm a member of the Prayer Caucus. Those are the issues that we deal with. And every now and then, you know, there's a specific issue affecting one of our constituents in the country, and we fight very hard to protect those things. And there again, whether it's, you know, the steel beams at ground zero in the form of the cross that we're trying to protect, or, you know, just prayer. I'd love to see prayer in school again. I think that's one thing that our children are missing out on because they don't have that ability. And you know what? Kids are so smart. When something's missing, they know it. They know that's not there for them. So it's a hard fight, and we're up against a lot. But I do believe that the more we all come together, the better off we're all going to be. So thank you for that question. I've got a question, let's see, from Miss Mary Reese. Mary Reese in Sanford. Miss Reese, are you on the line? Okay, Miss Reese must have gotten off the line.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello?
Miss Reese, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, did you have a question for me?
I sure do. I heard somewhere where there was like $1 million or more a day for keeping our soldiers overseas where they aren't wanted, and they've been fighting over there for centuries, and I don't think they're ever going to stop. So I think we ought to bring our soldiers home and use the money that we're using to keep them over there to create jobs here in the United States. And what do you think about that?
Well, thank you for that question, Ms. Reese. I'm going to put you back in the queue, and I'm going to answer that for you. And, you know, yes, we do. We have troops around the world on bases, and, you know, just like everything else we're looking at here in Washington, we are looking at the military, and we are saying, look, we've got to have savings here. We've got to cut on our spending. So whether we're talking about the Pentagon, whether we're talking about, you know, certainly defense programs, defense issues, we're cutting. Now, I am one that believes, though, that, you know, as Ronald Reagan did, I believe in peace through strength. And although I know that it seems like we have military in countries where, you know, maybe they don't like us very much, or they're our allies, or we're situated somewhere where we're helping to protect one of our allies, we are keeping peace around the world. We're the beacon of truth and hope for so many countries out there who are our allies. And, you know, our military, we do gain from this. I know that sometimes it seems like, you know, again, we're in places that don't like us, but the fact of the matter is we're building good, strong relations for a peaceful world. And again, we've got to cut everywhere. These are the things we're looking at. If there's an area, a situation where we can cut on spending so that we can decrease the debt that we've accumulated, we're doing it. And the military is doing that along with us because they understand as well that we have to be fiscally responsible in every way we can. So thank you for your concern with that. You know, many folks have that very same concern. I think we have time for one more call because we're coming down to about 2 or 3 minutes left in our session. Let's see. I've got a question here from Mr. Joe Thomas from Pittsburgh. Mr. Thomas, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank
Hi.
you so much for taking my call.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Good, thank you. I'm so happy you got elected, and I think you're doing a great job so far. But I wanted to bring up the fact that most of the average people out here are very disappointed in most of our politicians, that all it seems that they do when they go to Washington is just go to try to get reelected. And why won't they do something to make us feel like they're one of us instead of better than we are, in such ways as we don't understand why y'all are not on the same Social Security plan we are, same health plan that we are, retirement and automatic raises that are given to you. We just don't feel like it's right. And I hear that all the time, but nobody ever brings it up and mentions that this is just not right. And why can't it be changed? It'll make us feel better toward
Okay. Well, I think this is a great question to end on, Mr. Thomas. I appreciate that. And unfortunately, I'm going to put you back in the queue to answer, and then, of course, that'll be kind of the end of our session. But first of all, let me just say that there is a lot of misinformation out there as to the benefits that we receive as basically government employees. That's essentially who we are. And yes, we do get our salary, and yes, we have benefits that are available to us in health care. There's certainly retirement and things, but these are all things that we pay for through our salaries, just as you do. And, we pay into Social Security the same way you do, and we have to pay into Medicare and all the payroll taxes that everyone else does. Unfortunately, again, I think there is a lot of misinformation out there as to what is available to us and what we're able to receive, in that some folks feel that we, have these, master plans. It's not true. As far as some of even retirement, you've got to be a member of Congress for over 6 years before you can actually receive some of those things. So, again, we believe, just like you do, that good hard work should be compensated. And I am telling you that I'm working very hard here, every day diligently for you as my constituent. And I do have a health care plan, and I pay for it. And, of course, you as the taxpayer are paying my salary. But, again, I'm working very hard for you. And I just, certainly am very honored and appreciate the fact that you've elected me to be here. So thank you so much for your question. And just know that I'm always ready to clear up any of those misconceptions. So thank you all so much for being on the line. And I just want to say that, again, my door is always open to you. And anytime you would like to get information on what we're doing here in Washington, you can always go to my website, which is elmers.house.gov. You can sign up for our e-newsletter there at the website. And we're always ready to reach out to you so that we can always stay connected, and I know what your concerns are, and as we move forward. So thank you. God bless. Keep me in your prayers, and together we're going to turn this economy around and restore our country back to its greatness again. Thank you so much.